recorded just for
Yeah, just record.
Richard Guest.
I'll tell you guys, I have to do a meeting with Europe in a few hours. I'd probably be up till 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'm already running out of gas.
You need some ephedra.
I need some of those presidential
diet pills.
But yeah, I mean,
we'll go back.
If we don't make a video for my YouTube channel tonight, that's fine. I'm enjoying the discussion, but
okay, well let's record it and let's talk about stearic acid. I love to talk about stearic acid. That's what I've been into lately.
Go. You have one speed, one mode. Go.
All right, let me just do a quick intro and we'll get right to stearic acid. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of these crazy people that mostly just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. My name is Tom. I got some of the usual suspects here, and I don't know what Brooke is mouthing there in the corner, but I'm sure she'll fill us in. So we got Justin, we got Ray, and we got Brooke. And Brooke wanted to talk about stearic acid and her stearic acid experiment. And so, Brooke, you're all fired up. Just go for it.
All right. Hi. It's so great to be talking with you friends again. Yeah, I just can't stop talking about meat. The stearic acid trip that I'm on lately has been really interesting. So, it's fun to find new things to propel yourself forward and into the nutrition world. But I really love this whole concept and this idea about healing the mitochondria, which stearic acid can do and does, especially since most of us have come from a SAD diet or a mixed diet or a vegetarian diet or some other diet than carnivore, which at the base of almost all these diets, one of the things that's happening for us is that we're eating all these polyunsaturated fatty acids, whether it be all the nuts and seeds and plant oils that we've been eating on as a vegetarian, or a SAD diet with, with everything with processed foods, with soy oil and canola oil, which is all PUFAs. So it's this idea of, for me, it's like one of the reasons why the carnivore diet has such like this quick effect for people, I think, is the switch up of the fat, because they're not eating junk food, so they're not eating seed oils, and they're not choosing seed oils to cook with, and so you're eating a lot of meat, you're eating a lot of tallow or beef fat, which has got lots of different fats. All the fats usually have a combination of fats, but tallow has some stearic acid content, maybe, or not just say tallow, just beef fat in general has like maybe, I don't know, 10%, 12% stearic acid. And butter is about that 10% or whatever. So you're eating these animal fats. And then if you eat the suet, has 33% stearic acid. So it's very particular that the fat around the kidneys of an herbivore. And so it's really treated differently in the mitochondria. And the person that I have to attribute the talk that Michael Eads did in 2018, I think it's on YouTube, available, and I think it's called Another Theory of Obesity, something like that, by Michael Eads. He really explains it so well about what happens to the mitochondria with the long chain fatty acid as opposed to short chain fatty acids of seed oils, and how it has made such a difference. Our use of seed oils, which you guys know this, our use of seed oils have gone up, steadily with the steady rise of obesity, cancer, heart disease, and so with switching over and getting rid of PUFAs and switching over to not only animal fats but high stearic acid animal fats, which is this long chain fatty acid, you get this immediate difference in the mitochondria. And one of the differences is what happens in this reverse chain process. It actually pushes out fatty acids into the bloodstream. And so you're not hungry, you're satiated. And which is kind of like, do you remember that whole French paradox thing? I think out of the 80s or 90s. And I think 60 Minutes was talking about the French paradox, because the
Right.
French could eat
They had a lot of
croissant,
butter and stuff like
High in
that.
fat and also high
yeah,
in
wine,
yeah,
yeah.
wine.
yeah, and fat and butter and croissants. And so Brad Marshall, who I think his work was really interesting, and I interviewed him, and you can find that interview on MeatRx Success Stories if you look up Brad Marshall Success Stories, and it's about an hour. But he did something called the croissant diet, because he's carnivore, but he wanted to see, because he's a pig farmer now, but he was a molecular biologist or something by trade, and he wanted to see if you use this high stearic acid and you use the starch, so he used flour and made this kind of croissant, this sort of extra fortified stearic acid croissant, because not only was it butter, but it was extra fortified butter, whether you would lose weight. And he didn't want to just do it as on a carnivore diet, because he really wanted to show that it wasn't the carnivore diet, it was the stearic acid content. So he did, and he's had a lot of success with that. And he has a website called Fire in a Bottle, and he got a lot of information from Hyperlipid, which also Michael Eads got a lot of information for his talk from Peter from Hyperlipid. Anyway, so I've been really into that, and I think it's really fascinating. I encourage people to look at Michael Eads' talk.
So give us some idea what are some good sources for stearic acid?
Well, suet is the best source, I think. But also cocoa butter is also high in stearic acid, is 33%. But cocoa butter, I think it also has a lot of omega-6s. So, pick your poison if that's a concern of yours. But so suet would be something to utilize more. And suet, if you've ever tried it raw, you eat it and it's this very waxy, it's like kind of like you're chewing on a candle, has this waxy quality, which of course cocoa butter has a little bit of that quality too.
Oh, certainly.
Sorry?
Certainly.
Yeah. And so it's really getting that high. And so he does this thing, and I did do it at home. I bought high percent of stearic acid, which is almost like a powder. And then you can melt that into butter, and it infuses the butter and brings the butter from up to like 12% stearic acid to 33. So it's kind of a mixture. So
So wait, you can buy just like powdered stearic acid. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, online.
Oh, and it's from like meat or it's from fat, or like how does that work?
It's fat, but we talked about, I was asking Brad about that. Well, what's the source of this stearic acid that he also sells? And he said, well, it could be from plants, it could be from meat, but it's the source is a lab, which you take out, by a type of kind of process that you're kind of melted down, and you take the first melting off and the second. So you can get it down to like 99% pure. And basically it's kind of like what the ruminant does in the rumen, because the rumen, unlike monogastric animals like pigs or chickens, the rumen, the herbivore, can take cellulose, stearic, they could take pufa plants, whatever, and transform them in their rumen and turn them into the kind of fatty acids that we want, which is the miracle of the rumen, which is why eating ruminant meat is really key in the carnivore diet. I mean, you could eat pig if you're in Europe, because those pigs aren't corrupted by corn and soy. I think they use barley for the grain to finish in pig. So it's a little bit firmer, and they have a higher stearic acid in their lard.
Yeah, when you give pigs soy, they get softer and softer. So
exactly,
there's actually a limit to how much soy you can feed a pig before they get too soft.
Yeah, and the same with corn. It's yeah. In fact, he was talking about how pork bellies, American pork bellies, were always cheaper on the European market because it's too soft, and they want Danish pork, which is firmer. So when Paul Saladino kind of, I don't know, a few months ago he kind of dissed a little bit about pork and chicken eating, for people on the carnivore diet. And then there was this big, pushback because people were getting all upset that he dissed on pork. But really what he was explaining is because it's higher in PUFAs. And so if you're wanting to transform your body and get rid of PUFAs, pork wouldn't necessarily be the meat to eat unless you can get pastured pork.
Well, I mean, I thought the Saladino controversy was him saying that it wasn't the carbs, it's the PUFAs.
Well, that's a different
not-
controversy.
Okay, well, he's full of them. That's why he has his
Well, yeah,
controversial thoughts with
He
Saladino.
hung up on that glycine to whatever ratio too, right?
Right. I mean, and there's the honey. I mean, no, and
Yeah,
I think that also has legs. Because I am really thinking, especially with this whole,
Controversial thoughts with Brooke. Go for it, Brooke.
well, I'm really bought, this whole thinking about stearic acid and how the mitochondria utilizes long chain fatty acids. I really do also think it's much more the type of fat, the polyunsaturated fatty acids, than carbs.
So if you're gonna have carbs, have it with tons of butter, or top your carbs with some fat.
Okay, so that's Brad Marshall's experiment. Was like, okay, you can kind of get to the right proportions. If you really look, like Ted Naiman talks about, his P
ratio.
P ratio, P greater than E, protein greater than energy, and you keep the right sweet spot so you can lose weight or not gain weight. And the energy is either fat or carbohydrate, either one. He doesn't care. It's going to be used, it's going to be the macro for energy. And so it's kind of similar in that with Brad's work. It was sort of like, well, if you're using if you're using this flour, this carbohydrate as the E, if it's really high in saturated fats, it will still work and you will be losing weight. So he did this whole experiment.
I think my issue is you still have the problem with the Rundle cycle, which is if you mix fats and carbohydrates, you get triglycerides that become oxidized.
Well, he talks about that. He talks about the Rundle cycle.
Yeah. So remember the ROS obesity theory talks about the fat being insulin resistant, and the fat refuses
the fat cell.
The fat cells, yeah, the fat cells refuses any more intake, so it literally rejects them.
Because the reactive oxygen species is actually a communication to it's not it's a signaling that
I have to interrupt.
I
just have to say that my heart is warmed by the scientific discussion that you folks are having. I'm so glad you guys have gone down these rabbit holes. I'm so glad to have people like you, not only teaching me new things, but just to have people to talk about. Because I know this may sound a little sciencey out there to some people, but then there's other people, this is exactly what they're looking for, because they're kind of at our level where they're really pushing the boundary of their knowledge. And I gotta say that I'm really glad this discussion is happening, because I've been carnivore now for almost 3 years, coming up on 3 years, and I was keto before that. Kind of did the low carb keto and went right into carnivore. And it's finally starting to sort of trickle out into the people that I know. For a long time, I took a lot of solace in these videos because I knew it would help people that I didn't know, because I seemed like I couldn't help anybody that I didn't know. So like, I'm learning all this stuff. I'm having these enlightening conversations with like people like yourself, reading and listening to all these books, interacting with people online, and it seemed to have little or no effect on the people around me whatsoever. And we all know people that are suffering. But more recently, people that I know and have known all along are coming to me, asking me questions. They're meeting other people that are doing some sort of low carb or carnivore or keto or, whatever, or Whole30 or whatever. And they're really interested because they're seeing results. And so now I'm having these discussions with other people. So for a long time there, I was wondering, like, did I get too sciencey? Am I like, throwing out the Rundle cycle or talking about stearic acid versus linoleic acid, or, just carbohydrate versus fat for a fuel? And really protein is sort of the basis of building a human being. And then the carbohydrate and the fat are really the fuel components. Just getting people understand that protein, fat, and carbohydrate are the primary caloric units, right?
And alcohol.
And then there's alcohol. I don't have anything. We'll pretend this is alcohol. Here's alcohol. But yeah, so I hear you guys going on about this and getting so deep in the weeds, and I really it made me feel good knowing that the discussion has progressed so much, that like we are discussing about these things, that there is a difference between saturated fats and non-saturated or monosaturated fats, and people out there are fat phobic. A lot of people in particular are very, very fat phobic. And I think just opening the door and saying, look, there are different kinds of fats. And fat isn't really what's necessarily making you fat. I mean, it could be a contributing factor, right? But fat is a legitimate fuel source, right? And there are many types of fat. And understanding them and making better choices about them, like avoiding seed oils and stuff like that, is really where we can leverage our knowledge, right, for better health.
Yes.
Well, Tom, of course we're having a high-level discussion. I got my thinking do-rag on.
Right.
So I wore it.
You've wrapped your head in Jägermeister at least.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, maybe I should say, because I'm thinking about the audience. Maybe I should say, one of the ways to sort of introduce that into your own diet, you can just go to the butcher and buy suet or order it or whatever and get it.
Like $1 a pound. Like let's be.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Yeah, well, it's wicked cheap because they don't do anything with it. They throw it away.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they don't throw suet away, but they throw other fat away for sure. But yeah, so you can buy suet. Maybe get your suet from a pasture-raised animal, because it's going to be a special thing. And then one of the ways you can incorporate, I put it in my fatty coffees. I'll have coffee with some heavy cream and a chunk of suet, and you can blend it right up. Sometimes I'll take a piece of suet. I don't mind just eating it fresh and raw because it doesn't have a taste. It feels like you're eating a candle. And so I sort of chew a little bit, and so I get it into my system in the morning, and then you can fry it up with your food. And of course, the main use of suet is that it makes a really nice tallow when it's rendered down. And just so everyone knows, tallow just means any beef or lamb fat that's rendered down, like lard, right? So it looks like lard. But suet isn't necessarily tallow, but you can make suet into tallow. But tallow isn't necessarily from suet. It could be from any beef fat.
Right.
But if it is from suet, it's really, really hard and it lasts longer.
And let me throw it out there. Not everybody considers the same exact fat out of the animal suet. So some people consider just the fat around the kidney. I think they call it nephrotic fat.
Yes, that's suet. It's the casement of fat around the kidney. You can also find a little bit of it on the heart, but basically it's around the kidney.
Some of it, some people consider all the fat around the organs to be suet. So this is really where the language comes in. And to be honest with you, I think it is the fat around the kidneys is the best part.
It's the most part. It's like big chunks of it. But like I say, you can see a little bit around the heart. And I think Brad said that sometimes it's around the flank steak or something, but it's usually cut off. But it's very different looking and feeling. It's really hard and it's really waxy. And so it's a high stearic acid, and you also get a high stearic acid, the same amount in cocoa.
So do you feel different when you're eating more?
Yes. Yes.
Thanks.
Yes. I don't like, you don't get, I'm not hungry.
And so where exactly have you sourced your suet?
So I get my suet from there's a butcher in town that does just, pastured animals. And so when I called down there to get it, he goes, yeah, sure, we've got suet. And I got this huge amount because no one else is getting it. And so that will probably last me, I don't know, half a year or something. Because it's a huge amount.
Justin, you ever bought suet?
No, I've just bought some fat. I don't think it was suet. I need to go hunt some down, maybe go to the Whole Foods. I heard you can get suet from Whole Foods.
Really? I've never seen it there.
It's
But
probably
you have a better Whole Foods, maybe.
Maybe.
Why-
We do
why
have the
don't pasture-
mammoth ice cream.
it's probably only $27 a pound at Whole Foods.
White Oak Pasture sells it.
Yeah, you can
Oh,
get it
really?
online. Mhm.
That's probably only $37.99 a pound.
But but if you have a local butcher, you can get it. You can get it. It's the fat that remember mincemeat pies? That was made of suet. Suet is
I
dried
didn't know
fruit.
that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's chunks of meat and suet. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also it was also prized for if you didn't have lard or leaf lard, it was also used in pastry. I think Brad talks about Yorkshire pudding being made from suet. So it's been used all along, as a special fat because it's really different than the rest of the fat. Some people hate the waxy thing. I don't mind it.
So then, Brooke, I know you've never really big on pork and chicken. I don't think any of us are like exclusive pork and chicken. Obviously, we like our ruminants. So are you of the opinion that, CAFO chicken and CAFO pigs should be avoided?
Okay,
now?
so yeah, well, I don't use much pork and chicken. Just once I became carnivore, it's like chicken just made me hungry. But I of course eat bacon, and I would just buy bacon, nice tasty bacon at Costco. But now that I'm on this replace all PUFAs in my body with long chain fatty acid trip, I'm not using pork right now. I'm kind of avoiding it. I'm not using chicken, but I probably, if I really wanted to have pork, and only commercial pork was available, I would get lean. You know how pork is pretty lean, like a pork loin. It's really lean, actually.
Yeah.
So I would just get lean pork and then add my own suet. I'm just not eating pork fat right now, unless it's like, fancy pork that I raised or I know.
No bacon?
Sorry?
No bacon either?
So I'm kind of like cutting back because I like to make I like to make liver pate all the time and have it on hand. And I usually use bacon in that. So now I'm just not using bacon in that for a while.
Wow.
So I'm kind of like, because I'm really, I really want to, I want to, I'm so late to this party that I want to like catch up.
You're 21, Brooke. What are you talking about? What do you mean late to the party? You barely became old enough to drink.
Exactly. And when you recognize and remember that all of your cell membranes are made of lipids, they're made of the lipids that we've fed ourselves, then we have PUFAs all over, and you want to get, and some people say it's anywhere between 2 to 4 years to get rid of.
Replace it all. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, which is similar to, when I was talking to Brad about, if you're eating the fat you're eating has a really high stearic acid content, so it's really extra long chain fatty acids, then it's a sweet spot, because we're constantly utilizing our own cells. We're constantly eating up our own cells, and so those will be polyunsaturated fatty acids that we're utilizing. And so if you're adding a lot of stearic acid to that, you might get a nice little sweet spot that you're actually utilizing.
Okay, here's the $1 million question for you personally. Did you notice any body composition change from you adding that in or anything like that?
Okay, so, I've put on the COVID-10 or quarantine 15 or whatever.
Right, obviously. Yeah.
And worse than that, since the gyms are not, and I'm hanging on by a thread now in 7 months. I've lost a lot of muscle, I think. So I thought, well, that's uncomfortable. So I'm going to, put a little focus on the stearic acid thing. So yes, I have. And I think that is I think the way that works is that the stearic acid is so satiating. You're not hungry because of that reverse chain apparatus about putting the free fatty acids back into your bloodstream, that you're not as hungry. So you're ending up eating a little less.
So okay, got it.
Because if you still ate tons of fat, even if it's
Right.
but it really, you're just not hungry as much. You're satisfied longer because the fat is being released into your bloodstream.
Okay, saying that, have you noticed any muscle gains from that?
No, I haven't noticed muscle gains.
No. Okay.
Because I don't think it. I mean, no. And I'm not lifting weights like
I went to the gym for the first time since March yesterday.
But that was great.
It's fantastic.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not sure if the reason I ask for muscle is because, exercise sure plays a role in muscle, but then again, if your body's also properly fed and also leaner, your muscles show more.
That's right.
I was wondering if.
So, I think that could be, but I know that I heard you really asking about body composition, about lean body mass. And it's not, I don't think that necessarily builds lean body mass, except that you have more energy, you have the energy of having a fat being released. And I also noticed the heat. If I eat stearic acid, then my temperature raises.
Nice. That's amazing. So it's like your furnace now, and you're actually burning off all the excess energy. That's great.
Yes. And I think after, 2 years carnivore, I kind of felt that it's possible that my metabolism was slowing down a little bit.
Well, without the gym work too, for the last 6-7 months, everybody's metabolism is probably slowed down.
And our body does just naturally adapt, gets used to everything. And that's why people, do different kind of fasting or eat a raw or, do some more exercise.
Ray, have you ever bought suet?
Yes.
Where did you get it?
White Oak. When we went visited over there, we spent a night.
Oh, okay.
It's in Georgia, so not that far.
Yeah.
Well,
you've been to Zion? That's Zion in the carnivore community. You've been to Zion.
Yes.
Did you meet the Strong Sisters when you were there?
No. We were supposed to. This was this year, and it got canceled. The Copella or Chopella or whatever.
Right.
I was so disappointed because I was looking forward to it. Yeah, Ocella.
Yeah, they're sweethearts.
Ocella.
They're repeating it. You know that, don't you?
That's what I heard, but I haven't seen anything about it yet.
Oh yeah, they're doing repeat diet.
So I'll definitely buy some suet then.
Brooke, so what would you say? I know you don't track, but you'd guess. So it sounds like you're eating less but have more energy. And the other thing that I'm hearing is you're increasing your fat. So are you hitting fat?
I'm not really increasing my fat. I'm not, because we have some colleagues on MeatRx that are doing 80-90% fat.
Right. Yeah.
Or less, 7% protein and 93% fat. I'm not doing that crazy. I'm not really increasing the fat to that much, but it's more like when I eat fat, I want to make it count. I want to make that fat count. I want to do as much high stearic acid saturated fat that I can.
Now, the way you're putting in stearic acid is mainly through the vehicle of coffee, or you're actually eating suet straight up also, and how much?
So I do with that coffee. I make that fatty coffee, and that's fun and it's delicious. And then I was playing around with I think you saw my Instagram. I had tallow chocolates and cocoa butter tallow chocolates and little discs of tallow fat, all kinds of different shapes and sizes. And I can eat those, but really, and they're pretty and those are nice, whatever. But really, it's easy for me just to eat the suet straight out of as it is, because I don't care that much. But I'm also just I will instead of buying so many fatty ribeyes, I will use ground beef or a leaner cut of meat and then add my suet. Because, that's 33% as opposed to, I don't know, 12% or 15 of regular beef fat. So I find that I can use cheaper cuts of meat and add suet. So in some ways I am eating less because
That's a
yeah.
good tip. I've often suggested that too, because you can go get some $2 or $3, $4 a pound meat and then get the fat from the butcher, and
Yeah.
probably even better if you can get the suet. And I
Yeah.
think the most I ever paid for fat trimmings is like $2.50 a pound or whatever. So that's considerably cheaper than buying a ribeye or something like that.
Yeah.
If you can get suet for $1 a pound, that's amazing.
I don't remember what I paid for it. Probably more than that. I don't remember, but it was such a huge amount. I was just so thrilled. And it's, there might even be a tiny bit of difference of stearic acid percentage, and depending on what kind of ruminant it is, whether it's a grass finished or grain finished ruminant. It would be small, the percentage, but there might be some. So I won't bother. I'm not going to bother with any tallow now that isn't made from suet. I'm not going to bother.
Wait, so the suet you're getting is from grain fed or it's not?
No, it's from grass finished.
It is. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, one reason is because that's, it's not like the Safeway is going to sell suet. Anyway, But so that's been fun and interesting to see. I mean, I like this whole idea of, I like this concept of like, getting the PUFAs out of my body. One of the things when I was talking with Brad, I said, so when we store carbohydrate and we turn it into fat, what kind of fat are we turning it into? And he said, saturated fat. You don't turn into, the PUFAs only come from the outside. We don't make them. And so it's like, if we are making saturated fat in our body for food to be consumed later, for our body to use as fuel, then that just indicates to me, underscores that that's the kind of fat that our body wants.
Right.
That's
Like with
awesome.
like.
Yeah.
Right.
That's when we're gonna,
And how long, Brooke, have you been doing the stearic experiment roughly?
a month and a half, maybe 2 months. Time is so weird lately. I don't know whether it's 2 months or maybe it's
So about a month and a half to 2 months.
Yeah.
Sounds like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that's cool enough to notice a change. So I think it's safe to say that it's not increasing the fat. Like the kind of fat does seem to really matter, and you want to hit that stearic acid. There's real science behind that. That's very interesting. Yeah, thank you, Brooke.
So
Welcome, because even those animals like pigs and chickens, pigs, they don't make PUFAs. It's only the PUFAs that they've been fed. They don't make. They don't make.
Well, and just for refresh for people, we're talking about primarily seed oil stuff from things like soy and corn and stuff like that. So.
Polyunsaturated fatty acids, and even from like sunflower seeds, almonds, nuts. It's like
that sunflower butter that I used to go crazy over is killing me.
It is pretty tasty, isn't it?
There is like a argument for. I mean, because that it's like who brings this? I think Peter from Hyperlipid talks about, at the end of the summer, there's seeds and ancient man or whatever could have been gathering seeds and nuts and eating them then, because you're going into a long protracted winter and maybe you need some extra fat to put on, but they weren't making seed oil, so they weren't eating, so there'd be limited amounts.
Right.
So that's why.
Sorry, it's been a great discussion, guys, and I hate to cut it short, but I am running out of time, and unfortunately, my internet connection is unsteady. I got a new computer here, but I need to get a better internet service. So hopefully there weren't too much lag and or freezing in the recording. I noticed people froze a couple times. I'm pretty sure it's on my end. So
Did you get a used computer? Did you pick up one of Hunter Biden's computers at the computer shop?
I didn't find anything juicy on here, so no, I don't think it was Hunter Biden's, but I'll look again. If I got anything good, I'll send you a copy. But I want to thank everybody for watching.
Thanks,
I hope you enjoyed the
Thanks,
discussion.
Brooke.
Brooke brought a lot
Awesome.
to the table, and of course Ray and Justin. They always have something fruitful to add as well. So I hope everybody enjoyed it, and subscribe, like, thumbs up, all that stuff, and eat plenty of meat. Feel better, and whatever you do,
Don't fall
Don't
down
fall
the
down the carb
carb hole.
hole.